You're watching Fugitive Red Eye, and welcome to another Fallout video. Today I'll be discussing my controversial Fallout opinions. I was debating what other video I wanted to do tonight, either this or something Devilman related, so I literally flipped a coin and this is what won, so here you go. As you guys know, I quite like the Fallout series. It's one of my favorite series, and in fact one of the games in the series is my favorite game of all time, at least at the moment. And if you've been watching my channel, you know which one it is, which will bring me into my first opinion. So the first controversial opinion I have today is that I think Fallout 3 is the best Fallout game, and I think it's better than any other game. Now we can make arguments over objective quality and things like that, and I'll acknowledge the things that New Vegas does do better, like factions New Vegas does a hell of a lot better. And I'll admit that outside of VATS, the aiming and stuff works a hell of a lot better in New Vegas. However, New Vegas does make VATS completely broken. New Vegas makes VATS just really bad. Like, VATS crashes all the time in New Vegas. It basically is less accurate than when you're aiming in New Vegas, which I mean is good that the aiming is better. It just makes VATS kind of obsolete. Whereas in Fallout 3, you pretty much always gotta rely on VATS to aim, so I can understand why people don't like that. I also like getting a perk every level, rather than getting a perk every 2 levels. I can understand an argument for balancing and making it closer to the original, because, you know, in Fallout 1 and 2, you only get a perk every 3 levels. And yes, I know that New Vegas had people from Fallout 1 and 2 working on it, and I've heard plenty of the arguments where people say that New Vegas is better than 3. And a lot of the criticisms I just don't agree with. Like people saying it's too linear. Fallout New Vegas, you literally have to stay on the road to get to different towns. If you stray off, there's invisible barriers fucking everywhere. There's plenty of times when I've been walking around the Mojave, climbing the mountains, and I'll climb the mountains just fine, but then suddenly there'll be an invisible barrier on a flat surface, acting like it's a high mountain, and it just won't let me pass. Now, there have been times I've been able to get around the roads a little bit, but for the most part in New Vegas you have to stay on the road, whereas the Capital Wasteland is way more fun to explore. It's just a much better sandbox, I think. Like, yeah, I know that the Mojave is bigger, and Fallout 3 has the metros, which originally I wasn't the biggest fan of, but they grew on me. But the metros actually allow Fallout 3 to work better within its limitations and actually be bigger than it could have been without them. And also just kind of make it seem grander in scope in that regard. People will also say that, like, following your dad is somehow boring, but somehow following Benny is better. Don't get me wrong, I think the quest for revenge is great, but like, your family, I mean, family is very important to me, so I don't know why the attachment to your dad and going to search for him is somehow so much worse to people who are fans of New Vegas. I also hate how Benny has basically nothing to do with the main plot. Like, yeah, I know that, like, that's kind of the point. He's just supposed to introduce you to the world and get you used to the factions, so that you can pick a faction. But New Vegas hyper-focuses on the factions, which I think is good for New Vegas, because factions is the thing it absolutely does better than any other Fallout game. But another thing is I just don't like the atmosphere in New Vegas as much. I do like the neo-western atmosphere, but I really like the apocalyptic hellhole that 3 feels like in comparison. I understand that lore-wise there could be some contradiction, because, you know, it's 200 years later, so with how fucking devastated everything still is, might not make as much work. But as a self-contained game, I think it does a great job at showing the apocalypse better than any other Fallout game, which is one of the other reasons I think Fallout 3 is the best. I've done a review on New Vegas, I've talked about it. Obviously, I like New Vegas a lot, don't get me wrong. New Vegas is my second favorite Fallout game, and I've enjoyed New Vegas more and more with each subsequent playthrough. It's right up there with Fallout 3, but people will ignore pretty fatal flaws with it. Like, New Vegas is so much buggier than any other Fallout game. It's funny, because you'll hear New Vegas fans harp on Fallout 3 for glitches, but New Vegas has so many more glitches, and they're worse. Like in Fallout 3, the worst glitch you're gonna get is a Deathclaw being rocketed into space. New Vegas, you're gonna crash multiple times in every session if you play for more than a couple hours. And yeah, 3 crashes sometimes, but it's nowhere near the frequency as New Vegas's crashes. Yeah, that's the first opinion. I think Fallout 3 is the best Fallout. That's my first controversial Fallout opinion. My second controversial Fallout opinion: Fallout 1 is a fucking chore to play. I really like the atmosphere of Fallout 1. I want to make that abundantly clear. I like the story, the setting, and the aesthetic. I think it's all really good. But actually sitting and playing the game is such a fucking hassle. And I know it's an older game, and I know that it is largely probably a skill issue. But, like, those limitations and making things harder and not holding your hand I can get behind. Like, Morrowind is my favorite Elder Scrolls game, and it doesn't hold your hand at all. I will admit that I do have a bias in favor of the 3D Fallout games. I don't mind the isometric view. It just gets to be kind of a chore to actually explore. Especially with the time limit that Fallout 1 has, where you only have what is it, 150 days or 400? I think it's 150 days before you have to find the water thing or else you just lose. But just due to how much of a chore it is to actually get from place to place, difficulty spikes in combat, limited resources, the way that AP works in Fallout 1 and 2 is also pretty frustrating. I get it, it's an RPG. It's supposed to be like that to an extent. But those elements are very hard for me to get into on a first playthrough. I like the game. I've played it for a few hours, obviously, on stream. But there's just a few things in it that are just very hard to get past for me, and it makes it kind of a chore to play. I love the game, and I do want to try and beat it one of these days, but it is pretty fucking tough and hard to get through. I do also want to try Fallout 2, which I figure might be a little bit better because it doesn't have the same time limit. Like, I think Fallout 2 does have like a 13-year in-game time limit, but that's far more generous. Not to mention, I'm sure 2 will have a bunch of gameplay upgrades that 1 didn't have. That's it. I love the atmosphere of Fallout 1. I love the setting. That's why I'd love to see a remake of it, although I don't want the remake to be like Fallout 4 or 76 because those are pretty fucking bad. Although, me saying that will be kind of ironic when I get to my next opinion here, and we'll just go to that right now. I don't think Fallout 4 is really all that bad. That said, it's definitely my least favorite of the Fallout games I've played that I like. You know, not including Shelter or Brotherhood of Steel. I like Shelter way more than I thought I would, and Brotherhood of Steel I don't think is as bad as people make it out to be, but it's definitely repetitive and annoying. But Fallout 4, though it is incredibly flawed, I hate the level-up system, I hate the crafting system, and I was bored for a large chunk of the beginning of my playthrough. Once I got to be with the Brotherhood of Steel and followed that questline, I had a hell of a lot of fun. I've had fun with the DLCs, although admittedly, in some cases, I did kind of rush through them. I will admit that Far Harbor, I was kind of disappointed, because I expected it to be kind of Point Lookout again. And then there's this weird, like, crafting section where you go into this computer program, which admittedly is my favorite part, using the crafting system in 4. But it wasn't as fun as it initially made me think it would be. I've had fun with Nuka World. I need to complete it. It's been a minute since I've played it. And I need to play Automaton as well, but I haven't actually bought that one yet. But I do think the game gets a bad rap. Again, I hate the level up system. I don't like the fact that they got rid of skills in favor of just having perks. I think that's fucking stupid. But overall, I don't hate it, and I think that Brotherhood of Steel is a really cool faction. And I think that the Minutemen are interesting, although their quests are fucking boring as hell. The Railroad's fucking stupid. And the Institute is interesting as an evil faction, but I haven't really played alongside them. I literally just killed Father the second I got into the Institute. So obviously, I haven't done a whole hell of a lot of Institute stuff. But I do love the stuff with Liberty Prime in Fallout 4 with the Brotherhood of Steel. Fallout 4 I still think is a fun game, but it's definitely worse than 3 in New Vegas. I still like it a lot, but admittedly, I like it more than Fallout 1. Like, I don't think it's a better game than Fallout 1. Obviously, Fallout 1 is objectively a better game, but I just have more fun playing it because it's not as much of a chore. Now, admittedly, it was a little bit of a chore at first, getting used to it, and I don't like the way that the guns shake and stuff. Like, people could argue that's more realistic. It is more of a shooter. People always tell me how the gunplay is better in 4. I fucking hate the gunplay in 4. I also don't like that VATS doesn't stop time completely. It just slows it down. And the way crits work is kind of annoying, too, but I still enjoy it. It's definitely my least favorite of the 3D Fallouts that I've played. I haven't played 76 yet, so there you go. That one's definitely going to be worse. But I do think it gets a bad rap, so that's another controversial opinion. I also do use a lot of mods when I play Fallout 4 to make shit look more like it did in Fallout 3, so there's that too. Now onto my next controversial opinion, and that's that the NCR is the worst faction in New Vegas. Now, I don't know how controversial this is, but I assume there will be some who disagree with it. Compared to the other 3 great factions in New Vegas, I just found the NCR fucking boring. It's just like, yeah, let's set up a generic government that's, you know, got taxes and all that, and it's just trying to make things go back to a sense of normalcy. Which, you know, I can see maybe some people having the appeal of it. I just think their questline is the most boring. Like, there are parts that I like about it, don't get me wrong. But there's a lot of problems I have with it, too. Now, a lot of people don't like the Legion. I like the Legion because I like doing evil playthroughs. I think the Legion is really good for doing an evil playthrough. I think they're much more interesting than the NCR. I also think Yes Man is pretty good. He definitely appeals to the inner libertarian in me, making an independent New Vegas. I will say this, my favorite faction and my go-to faction is Mr. House. I fucking love Mr. House. Mr. House is great, and I love his questline. I guess the one positive to the NCR is that you can keep the Brotherhood of Steel alive, but you can do that with Yes Men as well. Overall, I like all the factions to degrees, but NCR is just the most boring out of the 4, I think. Although I do think the side factions are all really cool as well. On to my next controversial opinion. I don't think the Fallout games need to be set outside the US, like ever. I like just keeping it contained in that regard. Like, if they did one outside the US, I'm sure there could be a good one, don't get me wrong. I just want to see more of the US in Fallout, because I think that goes with it. Like, the game plays on 50s Americana and a bunch of things like that, so I think it makes sense to just keep the games in the US. I think we need to explore more of it, you know, maybe see New York, or Chicago, or Detroit. Because right now, we've mostly just seen the West Coast, the East Coast, and a little bit of Alaska in Operation Anchorage. Obviously, there are some mods that let you go to, like, London and stuff like that as well, but obviously those are unofficial. But there's so much potential in the US that we haven't seen. Like, we haven't seen Texas, Louisiana, or a lot of places like in the South as well, just in general. Like, there's plenty of places I would love to just see new Fallout games set in. A lot of the times they're set around the Mojave and around the Capital Wasteland. Like, the Commonwealth is pretty close to the Capital Wasteland. The Mojave is pretty close to New California. Overall, I think we just need to explore more of the US before thinking about expanding out of it in Fallout. And now for my final controversial opinion. I don't hate Brotherhood of Steel. Brotherhood of Steel is considered by most to be the worst Fallout game. It's basically Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance, but Fallout. Like, it's built in the same engine with a lot of the same mechanics. I will say it's definitely a worse game than Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance, but it is the only Fallout game that officially lets you play as a ghoul, at least that I know of. I don't know about if Tactics lets you or anything, because I haven't played it yet, but it's repetitive, it's frustrating, it's janky, but I don't hate it. I don't think it's that bad. Like, it's frustrating at times. But the humor in it's pretty funny. I like the fact that Balls is literally a competitor to Nuka-Cola. That's really fucking funny to me. I consider that canon. Like, I know it's not, but I like to think it is. Like, I think of the 3 drinks in Fallout being Nuka-Cola, Sunset Sarsaparilla, and Balls. Alright, so there you have it, my controversial Fallout opinions. I love the Fallout games. It's one of my favorite franchises. I love it. But obviously, my opinions do not go by consensus, they just go by my experience with the games, so there you have it. I hope you enjoyed this video. This has been Fugitive Red Eye. Have a good one. Toodles!